All right, you're welcome back. It's, of course, TVC Breakfast, the Friday edition. Let's start off with our first big story. And we'll be talking about the growing rate of kidnapping and murder in Nigeria. Let's look into the most recent one. On Thursday, a special sitting was held in honor of Honorable Gideon Aremu, a lawmaker in the Oyo State House of Assembly who was killed in front of his home. And as Oluwaseyi called out our correspondent report, eulogies flowed for the deceased as many called on security agents to find his killers.
It's a special sitting in honor of the late Honorable Gideon Aremu, member representing Orilokwe State constituency in the Oyo State House of Assembly. The atmosphere within the confines of the legislative chamber was somber as mourners could not hold back their tears. Honorable Gideon was killed by unknown assailants who still walk the streets as free men, leaving his bereaved wife and 4 children to pull through a future laced with uncertainty.
On Wednesday morning of 29 June 2016, exactly 2 days before your gruesome murder, you came to my house with Bukola, your wife. You and I were practically having our usual mentor. I left you behind on that day in my house without me knowing that it was going to be our last meeting.
Your candle burned out long before your legend ever did. So it was with Honorable Gideon.
The consensus among sympathizers here is that though the assailants have succeeded in snuffing life out of the lawmaker, his legacy can never be erased. Indeed, the deputy governor affirmed that he will forever be in the hearts of the people.
In 2009, one member of the House of Representatives, popularly known as Seyi, or there something like that, was also killed this week. 12 July 2009, 2016, let me call him my son, Dr. Gideon Tunji Aremu was also slain in the same way. If you look at all these 3 incidents, they are 7 years. What is really happening to us?
Those who think that the life of this gentleman has no meaning to them, then their life will also have no meaning to their family.
Amen. The late Honorable Gideon Aremu was born on the 10th of January 1975. He had a stint in the Nigerian army where he served on several peacekeeping missions. As the lifeless body of the Labour Party legislator laid in the lobby of the Parliament building in Ibadan, many could not hold back their tears. The deceased lawmaker has since been buried in his hometown, Igbo, Oyo State. Oluwaseyi, TVC News, Oyo State.
Meanwhile, the Oyo State Governor Abiola Ajimobi has placed a 5 million naira bounty on the heads of the 3 gunmen responsible for the murder of Honorable Gideon Aremu.
The governor announced the reward for anyone with credible information that might lead to the arrest of the killers.
Ajimobi appealed to members of the public in possession of any useful information to immediately report to the police or call these numbers 0802 343 1079 and 0803 653 6581. We'll take that number again.
Okay, it is 0802 343 1079, or better still, you can call 0803 653 6581.
Okay, we're joined now by a security expert, Oluwaseyi Adeyemo. Good morning and thanks for joining us on TVC Breakfast.
Thank you for having me.
A rather sad one, yet another politician has been cut down in his prime at the age of 41. I mean, one is reminded of people like Alfred Rewane, Harry Marshall, and all the others, Bolaige, of course. Those, till date, no solutions or no reasons have been found. No closure has, been gotten yet. Is this another one that's likely to go the same way?
This is an unfortunate situation for Nigeria, and I'm particularly worried because it seems to me that we don't seem to understand that security is serious business. Security is part of our life. Crime has always been from the inception of the world. And sometimes the way we handle security in Nigeria, this has got to be God's own country, because the level of neglect, it's alarming. Now this has happened, we're going to cry, we're going to do one or two things, we're going to place money and all of that, then we'll go back to the way we have always been. The fact that people are not being killed every day, like I said, it means that this is God's own country. What happens all over the world where you have people who are responsible, who are responsive to security matters at this time? Security issue is something that is happening across the world. As we speak, there's a negotiation going on between some people who killed or shot 11 police men in Dallas right now as we speak. So it's something that is happening across the world. So what is our usual reaction? That is the question we need to ask ourselves.
All right. Okay. So we have joining us in our Abuja studio, Mike Ejiofor. Many thanks for joining us this morning on TVC Breakfast, Mr. Ejiofor. Our guest here in the studio said that the federal government or the Nigerian government or the Nigerian people doesn't really place enough priority when it comes to the issue of security. What's your take on that?
Well, it's quite unfortunate that this incident in Oyo happened, and it's not peculiar to Oyo State. Why it has taken the front line is because you have is a politician, and people will link it to political murder. But generally speaking, there is a rising spate of kidnapping and armed robbery. And I think two basic reasons are responsible for the situation. On the kidnapping, I would say just the economic reasons, and partly to our political elites who, in fact, arm the youths during elections. And after the election, they have nothing to do again, rather to engage themselves with the arms already acquired by our political elites. So you see that that's the major problem, and there's so much arms, proliferation of arms in the hands of brigands, I would say. But the general security situation, you agree with me, this is the first time for the past 6 years that we witnessed in Borno State, the Ramadan was celebrated, hitch-free, no bombings again. So I think generally the society will continue to evolve, will continue to have problems, but the most important thing is that we must be on top of the situation. Our security forces must be on top of the situation. And I'm glad with the offer made by the governor of Oyo State, making 5 million naira for anybody who offers information on the killing of this politician. I think
wouldn't that 5 million naira? Wouldn't that same 5 million naira, Mr. Ejiofor? That's a 5 million naira now that is now a bounty for whoever brings credible information. Wouldn't that go a long way to equipping the Nigerian police force, at least those who are supposedly meant to be looking after the people of the Nigerian state?
Well, of course, it will help in equipping them, but in investigation too, you need to establish the links. So the bounty that is being offered by the governor will also assist, because if you get the people arrested, they should be able to say what actually happened. And don't also forget that the police, apart from the offer made by the governor, are privately doing their own investigation.
All right, let's come back to the studio now. Oluwaseyi, let me even bring this. Global Terrorism Index published by Institute for Economics and Peace in 2014 says Nigeria witnessed the largest increase in terrorist-related deaths ever recorded by any country in the world, increasing by, to up to 300%. That is alarming.
It is alarming.
And you said earlier that, there is neglect in the system. Neglect on whose part?
We need to connect some of these acts to the current situation in Nigeria. We have a country where most of the states have not paid their staff for more than 8 months. You have a country where businesses are dying. You have a country where a lot of things have not worked in a long time. You see, when you try to isolate security from the economic situation, then you're actually beating about the bush, because one of the very most effective security measure is social security. Now, the other part is human security. When the people feel deprived, when the people feel neglected, they would naturally, the human being, have what they call survival instinct. Now, if I need to survive and I cannot find a means of, nobody is saying what they're doing is right. There will always be criminals. But the question is, how many of us are now becoming criminals?
But in the case of global terrorism, in the United States, for example, yes, there is terror and all of that. In the case of Boko Haram, can you really say it is because of the absence of social security? Is that what it is? Or it's even beyond that?
No, that is why we need to be worried. Because if a country that has social security, that has all of those things in place, are dealing with that issue, then we, the way we are, because you see, we need to stress on that point, that as a people, we are not taking security seriously enough. Look, when you look around and see our security personnel all over the place, looking at them, you don't feel a sense of assurance that this person can really deliver security for me. Now, when you go around, even outside of Nigeria, and you see a regular policeman, even the Republic of Benin, the look on the face of the person tells you that this person, because that is also part of security. The fact that the person just looks at you and you feel ranged and you feel like, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to do that. But when you feel in your mind that I go settle him, that is not something that we should allow to continue. So we need to go to the basis and start to deal with some of these issues if we don't want to have cases like this every time and go around the way we're going around it now and go back to the same, go back to our mode, and at the end of the day, this will reoccur again.
Now, some others, experts actually have used the word food insecurity, financial insecurity, and quite
in
a
defining
number of,
security.
in defining when it comes to social issue. But let's look at the budget set. The defense budget for 2016 is about 369 billion against 459 billion of 2015. How really serious do you think the fight against insecurity is with this?
I'm not one who will celebrate numbers. I'm one who will celebrate effectiveness on the people. When I start to see a change in the psyche of those who are meant to man this security post and ensuring, look, we all go to bed and expect that policeman, all through the night will
So the problem is not the money, because that's where I was taking us to.
Yeah.
So you don't have problem with this number? So the problem really, it's not the money?
No, is it? Because if you start to hear the kind of numbers that's been juggled in recent times, that went down the line into the hands of security chiefs and went into their private purse, you start to wonder if those money had gone down all through in training, in equipping, in making sure that these people down the line do their job, maybe we'll have a better situation in our hands. Because it is unfortunate that we actually had those money and they never got to the hands or to the places
where they really should be. Now, isn't that where the problem is? Let me go to Mike Ejiofor. The 2014 confab, has actually talked about the need for, state policing, community policing, and all of that. A situation where you still have a large chunk of security funding and all of that coming from the center. How is it possible that, for the ordinary man on the streets somewhere in Abeokuta or in my village in Mbise, for example, will have a sense of security? And how can the federal actually be the one to provide that security for somebody like, you and I?
Well, there's a little break, but if I heard it very well, in terms of community or state police, I think I have been an advocate of state policing and community policing. They are two different things. And in terms of the state police, we cannot have state police without amending our constitution or restructuring our country. And that's the point people have been making, that we need to restructure. If you have a state police, I think people from that area dominate the environment, and they should be able to work with the locals to achieve maximum security. But the fact remains that the present situation where we are, that the entire security architecture is controlled from the center, is definitely ineffective. And we need to do something about it. But in terms of community policing, the people in the various communities should cooperate presently with the security agencies by volunteering information and assisting them, because if you don't have security within that very environment, of course, you are going to be affected. It's not the people who are outside that community that will be affected. So I believe very strongly in the issue of restructuring, especially the police. Like you asked my colleague over there, the issue is not whether there is sufficient budget for the defense, but the problem now is that from the hand side, from what is going on now, we see that a lot of funds have been misappropriated. So it's not the issue of funding. And also, we don't even, the economy is on the decline. So whatever we have now should be judiciously spent to ensure that appropriate equipment are purchased.
All right.
So the fact remains that we need prudent management, yes.
Okay, let's go to the issue of posting police to individuals, maybe the politicians and all that. There have been quite a number of calls that should be stopped. And the new sheriff in town, the new IG of police now is taking a second look at that. But with this incident that just happened, the Oyo State lawmaker who was killed, and don't forget the one that happened in the UK, Jill Cox, that was killed. Would you suggest that these politicians, because perhaps of the role they play in the society, should be given some, as it were, special security?
You see, I have been against this issue of deployment of guards to private individuals. And each time a new Inspector General of Police comes in, he issues the directive that they should be withdrawn. A situation where you see legislators and private individuals going with as many as 8 policemen, it's condemnable. And I also want to urge the new Acting Inspector General of Police to follow his directive with action. He's not just issuing it and people will run back to say, I am so person, I am entitled to this, my life is under threat. If all of us, if our lives are under threat and policemen are attached to everybody, where would we have the policemen to work with? So I believe very strongly that you should follow it up with action, withdraw those people who are not entitled to VIP protection, who are not entitled to details. And those are people who think of the president, the governors, the speakers, the judges, because of their peculiar position.
I mean,
the question
speaking of
or chairman of local government.
Indeed. All right, let's come back to the studio, Mike Ejiofor. Yes, speaking of security forces and all of that, let's look at the police. You have 300,000 or thereabout, to meet the security challenges of a large population like Nigeria. And there's an additional 10,000, plus or minus, that's about 310. I mean, that's not rocket science. But is that really enough to meet, these growing challenges of kidnapping, murder, and all manner of things? And secondly, too, is there a need, for another look at, the security forces themselves, especially the police? Because one has heard of cases where there's collusion, on the part of police and other security forces with this criminals.
Clearly, numbers is not enough. But beyond numbers, these are people who look at security as their career. They want to become like a professor in their career. They're looking at, one day I will grow to be this. Now, what I'm saying is we need to make the job interesting. We need to make it an exciting one. You need to be able to tell your child that, do you know I'm a police officer? And do you know that they have families, they're related to people. They deserve to also go into some of these restaurants that the rest of us go to. They are Nigerians. And so those are the angles I imagine we look at. It's an holistic thing. You want someone to deliver on a mandate, the person must be motivated and driven.
What kind of motivation are we talking about? Let's talk about that, after we come back from reminding our viewers on TVC Entertainment that you can continue to watch the show on TVC Nigeria on Concert Channel 190, DSTV 418.
GoTV, it is 45, and SCTV, it is 510. So get the remote controls and tune into those channels. Right.
These are the two questions I'd like to, throw at both gentlemen. The issue of motivation, we keep hearing about that. What kind of motivation are we talking about that will make the average policeman or even military man or immigration man, the rest of them, actually live up to expectation?
Each time we go there, Hali, I just wonder why we all feel this is this difficult. We had, sorry to mention names, old banks. And we came up with new banks, and the banking industry in Nigeria turned around. Now the question is, what happened? Why debanking? Because I remember at some time, we would go to banks and spend a whole day, trying to have transaction. But the new guys came up with motivation, good condition of service. Now it's another state. The same thing. Let us take it on to the security environment and ensure that we do the right thing so that these people would use the latest technology, they would have the proper training, they will get the proper equipment to work, they will get living wage as salary, they will get an arrangement. In Lagos, during Marua time, the Operation Sweep was very, very effective. Why? Because a condition of service was put in place. They could see it. They're human beings. If you're not driven, you will not deliver. Don't let's kid ourselves.
Okay, all right. And Mike Ejiofor, let's just stick to the case study at hand. That's the kidnapping, the killing of the Oyo lawmaker. According to reports that we got, about 3 men actually trailed him to his own house, and after they killed him, after they shot at him, they waited to make sure that he died. Dead. So there was a time lapse, really. If they probably would have called the police, perhaps if there were security cameras around, we'll have recorded and get back to the investigative table. Does this really still rest with the Nigerian police? Wouldn't the state, or shouldn't the state do a little more? Perhaps have security cameras on the street of Ibadan or your state, for instance?
Well, I agree with you. The state can do more in terms of cameras. But they say charity begins at home. You should also reinforce security in your house. There's something wrong with it, or nobody says you should not have cameras in your house. Political office holders are also encouraged to install all those equipment in their places because it could assist. The worry now, because the way the man was killed, it's suspected to be a political murder. Maybe he had problem with some other people. But I want to suggest that our political office holders and politically exposed persons should take measures to protect the environment, especially their house, and lecture their children on how to at least lock their doors. Some people don't even lock their, some people don't have gates to their houses. These are basic security measures that you can take to at least secure yourself before you talk about government. Everybody is saying government, government, government. And we can't continue to call government. We need to also assist government to do certain things to protect our lives.
That's an interesting angle. The fact that it's still important for you and I to, take our own security in our own hands. But let's even look at other areas. We're looking at kidnapping too, which is, it has become the business, for a number of people. Of course, armed robbery is still very much on the rise. We remember that Gowon actually instituted the death penalty to meet or to tackle armed robbery. That didn't solve the problem. And so one wonders, how do you solve the problem of murder, kidnapping, and the rest of it? Before I allow you answer that question, let's bring you some statistics. Now, kidnapping is now a lucrative venture carried out for various reasons ranging from economic, political, and personal grievances. Now, some are killed before they were rescued, or before they are rescued, actually, while others are rescued by their relatives after paying ransom.
The rate of kidnapping in Nigeria has risen considerably in the last 10 years. Not less than 1,500 people were kidnapped on an annual basis in the country. Some factors that have been linked to the increase in the rate of kidnapping are
the widening gap between the rich and the poor. The fact that most kidnappers don't get prosecuted has also given impetus to more people to join the trade. And some prominent cases of kidnapping include the abduction of elder statesman and former SGF Chief Olufalaye in his home, or his farm actually, on his 77th birthday in Ondo State. Also, the abduction of former Minister of State for Education, Senator Iyabo Anishulo.
That was in Ogun State. And don't forget that of the Permanent Secretary of Osun State Ministry of Finance, Adebimpe Ogunlumade, and the two others were abducted by unknown gunmen along Obajana-Lokoja Expressway, that's in Kogi State.
And in Ondo State, two Reverend sisters were kidnapped along Ore-Shagamu Road on May the 12th. They have since been rescued. Some recent cases of kidnaps gone wrong include that of an Army Colonel, Samaila Inusa, who was found dead after days of his abduction in Kaduna State. Another of such case is that of the king of Obuluku Kingdom in Anyocha North local government area of Delta State, Obi Akeze Olufule III, who was kidnapped and killed. Another troubling issue is murder in just last week, that of the lawmaker we've just talked about in Orolekwe State constituency in Oyo State House of Assembly, Honorable Gideon Aremu. He was killed last week by unknown gunmen. And also a governorship aspirant in the just concluded All Progressives Congress APC governorship primary in Edo State, Casely Omoirabo, escaped an assassination attempt after gunmen broke into his house in Delta State. Freedom House reports that Nigeria recorded one of the highest rates of kidnapping in the world in 2013, coming after Mexico and India. I mean, that really is worrying when Nigeria is placed on the same level as countries like Mexico. It's really sad. And one recalls just last week, a Sierra Leonean envoy was kidnapped in Port Harcourt. Just last week. And this is really worrisome. The Senate is talking about proposing a bill, for a death sentence for kidnapping. And like I said earlier, will that work? For armed robbery, obviously it did not work. But let's get more of this.
It is important for us, while the security agencies are doing everything possible to ensure that this does not continue. As individuals, as human beings, as citizens, we need to cooperate with the security agencies by insisting that we're not going to pay anything. Because once they see that the business is not working, it will either reduce or it will stop. So I think that needs to be done. And I encourage every state to have a law on kidnapping, which is very serious. So I know the psychology of kidnappers because I stayed for 2 days with them.
I think it has reached a stage in the life of this country where we should take our responsibilities serious.
And we hope that apart from the efforts in providing adequate funding to the security agencies, we can also look at laws that will further help in fighting this crime that has become a great problem in our country.
All right, Mr. Adeyemo, you heard that there. Is that the way forward? Will that stop the spate of kidnapping?
Like I said earlier, it's not a one-take thing. It's actually an holistic thing. We're going to go through a whole lot of things, and we need to show seriousness. We need to show the fact that we're determined to solve this problem. It is not a problem that is there. It's a problem that is on us. Crime runs with the human race. If you have 10 people, one of them will be a criminal. That is the truth. And so if that is the case, then we need to take it seriously. Because like I said before...
Wouldn't that be a deterrent to others? Okay, if you're caught, you will be killed.
Now, those who you're going to use to go and catch them, I'm saying take care of them first. Because you're not going to go and catch them. At least you're going to catch them before you kill them. Now, ensure that the people you're going to use to catch these people are motivated, are driven. You know, there's a lot of things. And you're not going to catch people if you still use the technology of 50-something in today's, when a lot of people have a lot of things done technologically. We need to understand some of these things. These things are done sometimes most often before the things happen. We need to have information on that. You need to have surveillance. You need to have a lot of things in place done so that before the man takes a step, you already know he's going to take that step.
Absolutely. And you're talking about intelligence, of course. Mike Ejiofor, the gap, you know, the real challenge seems to be intelligence gathering on the part of, you know, the security forces. That seems to be the missing link. And, you know, listening to Ike Ekweremadu, the Deputy Senate President there, he's saying that, you know, don't just pay ransom and all of that. It's easy to tell people don't pay ransom, but it is obviously a reflection of the fact that Nigerians hardly have confidence in the ability or capability of the security forces to get, you know, the right kind of closure they want each time somebody is kidnapped.
Yeah, I entirely agree with the Deputy Senate President. People should not pay ransom, but it's not as easy as just being said. Except you are affected, then you know the psychological trauma that person is going through. But if people are discouraged from paying, I believe that it will be on the increase. And the most importantly, are the psychology of the people kidnapped, the hostages. They need to cooperate with their kidnappers, obey all instructions, and listen to them. They don't have the intention. I continue to emphasize, the intention is not to kill, but to collect money. So when you cooperate with them to the last minute, they begin to negotiate. While they are negotiating, you also go along with the security forces. I think I was reading yesterday when some people were arrested when they were to collect 3 million naira. So those are the areas. But the people will encourage you, don't report to the police. If you don't report to the police, we continue to encourage the people. And on the terms of intelligence gathering, it's very critical because most people who are involved in this matter live within us. And people know that there are certain people living in the community without any ostensible means of livelihood. And yet, they continue to condone them. They don't report to the police. At the end of the day, if anything happens, if the heaven falls, no one is going to be spared because we're all involved in it. So I believe that I also want to urge the new acting Inspector General of Police to consolidate on the achievements of the immediate past Inspector General of Police, who made intelligence the driving force of his operations. And I think that's the way it should be. It should strengthen the intelligence network and collaborate with the other security agencies who are statutorily charged, like the State Security Service, of providing intelligence.
And without
that's
the
best way to go.
Without
It's a problem,
the input,
and
okay. Yes, let me come back to the studio to Adeyemo.
That's how you just brought out now. It's disturbing.
Indeed, and talking about intelligence, with how much intelligence can you really achieve without the buy-in of the citizenry? The average Nigerian, when a crime is committed, hardly has confidence to go to the police.
That's very true, and that's why I insisted that this is not something you do as a one-off. For instance, you don't want to bother about somebody that is being lynched behind you or beside you in Lagos, for instance. Everybody just goes their way, and that's something we need to deal with. And that's why it's important that we build confidence in the people. So the apathy must be taken care of. If you really want a people who will report to the police, they must see that they can trust the police force. And those are things we need. That's why it's an holistic thing, and we must see seriousness in those who are going to do this. If they don't show us that they're serious about it, everybody will talk, but we'll go back to our different corners, and life will go on like that until another strike.
Okay, all right.
I guess that's where we have to leave it, gentlemen. Oluwaseyi, Adeyemo, Mike Ejiofor, both security experts. Thank you so much for joining us on TVC Breakfast this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming.